Hey guys, how's it going? So, on your last homework assignment, I asked you guys to take a quick little survey for me and let me know what y'all wanted to continue to study for the rest of our time here, the rest of the year. I gave you an option of the stock market, which I think a lot of you already learned in econ, which is super awesome sauce. And then modeling a business, which I thought some of you might be interested in. And then also preparing a budget and, well, budget one. Like it wasn't even a question. Y'all want to learn about preparing a budget, which I think is a great idea. So in this chapter, it's nice and short. So we are going to call upon all of the prior knowledge that we learned this year to create and chart a responsible personal budget plan. So you guys are going to do a budget plan for yourselves by the end of this. We are going to analyze cash flow and determine net worth by the end of this unit, but hopefully you guys will leave spread your wings at the end of this year and know what it's like, what things go into a budget, how to prepare a budget, how to be financially responsible with a budget, all of that kind of jazz. So pretty pumped. Let me hide this little thing here. So you guys have heard budget before, right? And based on all of the things we've talked about this year, you know there are certain things that go into your budget. There are fixed elements of like costs that you're going to have no matter what, such as car insurance, a mortgage potentially, credit cards, investments, loans, life insurance, pensions, savings accounts, sales tax, income tax, property taxes, and so on and so forth are just some of the expenses. And I say some of the major ones, but there's a ton of other expenses that are missing here that you're going to have to account for when you're managing your finances as you go into adulthood, as you hashtag adulting, right? But it's really important that we organize all of these expenses so that we can plan responsibly. So let's get into it, shall we? Y'all have heard of it. You're gonna need a budget, all right? And budget's a multi-purpose word. It can mean spending and saving plan, like I need to stay within my household budget. You could use it as a verb, being like, hey, you've heard of it being used as a verb before, like, oh, this is totally within my budget. My wife and I budget $100 per month for entertainment. I budget $85 a month for my cell phone bill, right? You could use it as an adjective, meaning that something that's reasonably priced, like he bought himself a budget suit, or like, can you believe that I got all of this stuff under budget? Like, say you went to the store and you got a bunch of cool stuff and it was under budget, right? There's so many different ways that you could use that. So what's in a word? A little background, a little history here for you, just a tiny bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. The word budget is derived from an Irish word meaning sack. So think about it, like you got a sack of money back in the day. Budget would you'd have to allocate that sack in order to make sure you were able to pay for all of your expenses. It also has a Latin root bulga, and it's found in the French language as bourget. I think that's how you say that. Bois, it's not bougette. It doesn't look as it sounds. French is a very tricky little fickle language. I'm pretty sure it's bourget. 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 French people sound like they're mumbling. Um, it wasn't until the 1700s that budget took on a financial meaning. So even though we've been talking about budget for what seems like forever, actually wasn't until the 1700s before they were like, oh, let's think about this in terms of finance as the world was evolving. Since it's a pivotal aspect in financial planning, obviously at home, which is like what we're going to be doing on the micro level. You hear about the budget of education all of the time, right? Like California lawmakers and policymakers have a particular budget for education, and then that budget trickles down and goes to, our different districts, and then our superintendents, and then that budget trickles down and eventually comes to me, your wonderful, awesome, most exciting, cool teacher, right? Part of that budget goes towards me. But yeah, and then also I'm sure you guys have heard in the political world, in government, budgets, over budget, under budget, budget everywhere, and also in industry. So you'll hear a lot of times that companies have budgets, right? If you have a project going on, you have a budget for that project. You can't spend over a certain amount of money. Like, think about all those shows on TV, all of those like DIY shows or like house flippers or whatever it is. Like, they come in, they talk to their clients, and their clients have to have a budget, right? They don't just go in willy-nilly and, start, remodeling their entire home, and they're $3 million in debt later, and they're like, oh, by the way, I had a budget of $600,000 or something like that, right? So budgets are really, really, really important, not only on your own personal level, like in order to live a financially stable life at home and with your families, but like retrospectively, macro lens, budget is everywhere. It kind of rules all, especially since, we're talking about finance, we're talking about money and how money makes the world go round, essentially. So, whether you're planning for yourself or an entire family, a sound budget makes sense, and sense, pun intended. So, found this quote in the text, and I thought it was pretty preemptive, considering you guys can't stop buying things. So, a budget tells us what we cannot afford, but it doesn't keep us from buying it. So, some of you guys might need to think about this and sit on this for a while. After we prepare a budget by the end of this unit, it will tell you what you can't afford, but it doesn't keep you from buying it. What do you think that means? For me, this means a lot of different things. Like, you guys might be over here on the internet typing in your credit card information and still buying stuff, right? You can't quite afford it, but you put it on your credit card because you really want it. It doesn't keep you from buying it. I also think that you can kind of think of this as a goal, right? Like, you're like, you know what, I really can't afford a new car payment right now. But I do know that in the future I'm going to need a car. And so maybe you'll budget until you have enough savings to make that purchase. Do you want to build a budget? I didn't think this part through. And limit your excessive spending. I think it was all right. Yeah, we're gonna build a budget, okay? Together, we are all gonna do it. Actually, I'm gonna build a budget for me and my roommate as well throughout this unit, so it's gonna be a lot of fun, y'all. So, first section of this unit is 11.1, utility expenses. So we know that utilities are a thing that you have to budget, right? So we're gonna go over different utility expenses. We're gonna compute the cost of electricity, gas, oil, and water for the home. We're going to compute the cost of specific appliances used for certain lengths of time, and how long it takes an energy saving appliance to pay for itself. So let's hop right in there, shall we? Worldwide question. Y'all are going to be like, well, how much do utilities cost? And honestly, this varies from person to person, household to household. It completely depends upon your means of living, how you set up your life, right? Whether you live in a house or in an apartment, it makes a huge difference on how much your utilities cost. Whether you live alone or with a family, that would make a huge difference too. There's so many different things, but what you do know, or what we will know, as far as we're talking about utilities, to make sure we're all on the same page, whether you own a home or you rent a home or you rent an apartment for that matter, you are charged for using electricity, natural gas or heating oil, and water. Most of us run on natural gas. Very seldom places have heating oil, but that was a thing in the past, or in like very rural areas, but not so much anymore. So what we're talking about here, electricity, gas, water, those are utilities. Depending on where you live, sometimes they'll throw, trash in there too. The cost of trash, yes, you have to pay for somebody to come and pick up your trash. That is not for free. Uh, Pay for recycling, that's a utility cost. You pay for utilities after you use them, so you're like using credit essentially, right? So at the beginning of April, I got a bill for all of my utilities, right? But that's actually how much of the utilities I used last month in March. It's not projected for this next month, but we can kind of start to make trends and track our utility payments and things like that to make a pretty good guesstimate of what the following month will be and kind of predict about on average how much our utilities overall are going to cost, which will be very important when building a budget. How much electricity do you use a month? How much gas do you use a month? What about water? I bet you don't know. Honestly, I don't really know either. I just know what's my normal usage, and then I know when I use a lot or a little. I don't know exactly how much it is, but everything is recorded by a meter, right? These companies can't just arbitrarily make up some number and be like, oh, yeah, your electricity is going to be $60 this month. And just, out of nowhere, they have to actually measure it, which is one of the reasons like why math is so important, is because a lot of these companies wouldn't be able to measure something without the resources and the ability to quantify something. So it's being recorded by a meter and then billed accordingly for all of those things, for gas, for water, for electricity. So something very important. They don't just make these things up. That would be unethical. So I'm sure you guys know this ain't, a brain buster, but every electrical appliance uses electricity, hence the name electrical appliance, right? Electricity is measured in watts. The amount of electricity used is measured in watt hours. This is important because this is what you'll see on a bill. So, for example, a 60-watt light bulb burning for 2 hours uses 60 times 2, or 120 watt hours. Because it's watts times hours, watt hours. A kilowatt hour, kWh, is equivalent to 1,000 watt hours of electrical use. And electricity is sold by the kilowatt hour. So that's really important. When you get your bill, your electricity is sold by the kilowatt hour. Water and gas are sold in cubic feet. So something to keep in mind, water and gas are sold by the amount of space it occupies, not its weight. So if something's sold in cubic feet, cubic meaning something times something times something, cubic, something to the third power, this is a volume, right? So they're measured in cubic feet. So CCF represents 100 cubic feet. That is what you're going to see your bill represented in. CCF, 100 cubic feet. And 1 cubic foot, not 100, but one of them, can be visualized as the volume of a cube, where you have 1 foot on here, 1 foot over here, and 1 foot over here. So this is 1 cubic foot, and CCF is 100 of these. So something to keep in mind. Again, cubic feet, volume, length times width times height, something times something times something, inches, 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 feet, 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 whatever it happens to be, is something to the third power, representing volume to fill up the space inside of this cube. That's how they measure gas and water, not how much it weighs, because obviously gas is significantly lighter than water. But they want to know how much you're using, not how heavy the material is that you're using. Water can be measured in gallons, which is also a unit of volume, which we're a little bit more comfortable with since you've probably seen a gallon of milk in your fridge at some point or another. And natural gas also uses meters measured in CCF. When you build your natural gas usage, the units are often reported in therms, which is a measure of energy. So therm is just a specific measure of energy. I didn't actually know this was a term until like a little bit ago, which is pretty cool. Kind of like how, joules are energy in physics. Therms is how you can measure energy for natural gas, and a therm is approximately 1 CCF. So that's important. A therm. So right now we're going to talk about meters and utility bills. We're going to learn how the use of these bills can be, how we can read the bills and how we can read the meters. We're going to talk about the dial meters that we have. Again, the units for natural gas are 100 cubic feet, 100 CCF. So when we say CCF, that's 100 cubic feet. The units for electric usage are in kilowatt hours, kWh. Little tidbit before moving into the examples. Previous reading is the last time it was read, and a present reading is where it's at now in the present. So that kind of makes sense. But before I dive into some examples, since I did want to say that we're going to learn how to read the meters and how to read the bills, it would only be fitting that I showed you some of my utility bills. And this is accurate. I pulled them up today. So our water bill goes through EMWD, Eastern Municipal Water District. So here's our daily usage chart of our water. And you can see this is super accurate. Like this literally was from March 27th through April 25th. It is the 26th right now when I'm recording this. But you can see that over here is the CF, the cubic feet, how much cubic feet we're using, 0 to 120. The smallest amount we've used is like, maybe this guy, very, less than 30. This date, we obviously used a lot of water. So on the x-axis is dates and the y-axis is the usage. You can see that this is March 28th, and that makes a ton of sense because the house that I live in, we completely re-landscaped our front yard over spring break. We completely re-landscaped our front yard. We installed different what's that called? Sprinkler system. We put in a bunch of like cool plants and things like that, and then we sat down this like gravel type thingy. I don't know. It's not rocks. It's not. I don't know. Some sort of like low impact economic stuff that's supposed to be good. It looks pretty, but also it's something we don't have to water, obviously, or worry about any weeds coming through or anything like that. So when we did that, we obviously had to set up our sprinkler system. We had to test it out, and then for that gravel, we had to wet it. We had to shovel it, break our backs, shovel, and then wet it. And then we had to roll it and like press it into the ground so that it was nice and like compacted. But so yeah, this day totally makes a bunch of sense because we were heavily watering. But underneath, what I thought was super interesting is it goes in to tell you that the daily usage chart allows you to select and view up to 90 days at a time. The hourly chart, blah, blah, blah. Please note the current date is out of the record. Water usage will display in the chart. If parameters are passed, EMWD meters measure water in cubic feet and acre feet. Like, we're not making this stuff up. It's in cubic feet. All residential customers have meters that measure the cubic feet. I'm a residential customer. We have a meter. It measures how much water we're using. For residential customers, EMWD converts cubic feet into billing units for your billing statement, which is really important. This is how they figure out how much to bill you, right? 1 cubic foot is 7.48 gallons of water. And one billing unit is 100 cubic feet or 748 gallons. So to give you a nice little visual of how much that is, we know how much a gallon is. Think a gallon of milk. That's 0.13 cubic feet. A tenth of cubic feet. 7.48 gallons might be how much you use when you're washing dishes. 1 cubic foot. And then 748 gallons or 100 cubic feet, or 1 billing unit would be like if you were to fill a small swimming pool. So something to keep in mind. Because we're going through the utilities, we also have electric usage. So we have Southern California Edison. So here's a graph from SoCal Ed that I just pulled up off of our bill. You can see April 10th to April 26th, 2020. And you can see over here is the y-axis measuring kilowatts per hour. And then these are the dates. So usually it's just bar graphs and then like what they're measuring. average, we use 11 kilowatts per hour. You can see earlier this month, not really a whole lot going on. And then this weekend, lots and lots and lots of energy usage because when it was hot, super hot, right? Also, the weekends, we tend to relax, we tend to chill, we tend to watch movies. We had a Twilight marathon this weekend, so it was a lot of watching. But you can see, obviously, we're using a lot more kilowatts. But just so you can see kind of how your bills can be broken down, and then they obviously tell you how much your bill is for the month. And then, of course, our gas bill, SoCal Gas. And instead of showing you a chart, where there's a chart embedded in it, I'm actually showing you the bill without our personal information on there. So you can see that this was due April 20th, which was last Monday. Our gas bill was $33.41 for a residential home, which actually isn't too terrible. It could be lower, but it's not too bad. Gas is usually one of the cheaper bills that you will have out of the three. Out of gas, water, and electric, usually gas is the lowest. And we split this, so this is roughly $15 each. So something I want to show you is check this out. So this is total therms used. Again, remember there's that word therms. That's how they measure the energy, right? We didn't move into this house until October, so there's little to no energy at all because we barely got it turned on. I didn't move in until November, actually, so a little bit more December, tons, because we were also Christmas time, it was cold, we needed to use the heater, things like that. That burns a lot more gas. Significantly went down, but you could see the therms, it breaks it down, days and billing cycle, whatever. But something I actually want to show you guys is that this is a residential bill, right? Climate zone, there's different zones. You might have a different gas bill depending on the climate that you live in. Baseline allowance, so we are allowed for 49 therms. And then shows from our billing period that is 29 days in that period. Here's our meter number. So we do have a gas meter, right? The current reading is 4,107. The previous was 4,082. So we take the current reading minus the previous. This is going to be 25 is the difference between those two numbers. And then they take 25 times the billing factor, which is 0.968 or 97 cents essentially, times BTU factor. So remember when we were talking about British thermal units, BTUs, when we were talking about air conditioners. And overall, we have 25 total therms. So we got to figure out the charges, right? We had 29 days. This is the rate at which we were charged, 0.16438. So that's $4.77. That's just the charge for having gas turned on, I guess. 16 cents a day, roughly, or 17 cents a day. So that was $4.77. Then we have our therms, the amount of energy we use, 25 therms, times the rate per therm, which is $1.04. So that's 26.02 plus that 477. That brings us up to $30.79. And then there's always fees, right? So here's a state fee, public purpose, I don't know. So then we end up with our total charges of $33.41, which is the amount that you see right here. So kind of a little bit more of a breakdown into the bill. Normally people just look at this, be like, cool. If you're weird like me, I like to look at the trends. I like to see how can I save more money. Like you could see last month it was $39.94. This month it's 33. I hope next month we can get it down to under 30 and continually decrease the amount of gas that we use so that we can live a more frugal life and save my money. So let's get into the examples. We've got, I think, 6, and they're not too crazy. So let's get into them. Remember, we're talking about utilities. Tom's October water bill listed 2 meter readings. The previous was 3,128 CCF, cubic feet, and the present is 3,141 cubic feet, CCF. How much water did he use during that billing period? Well, this is kind of like the beginning of that last bill I just showed you. So we've just got to figure out the number of waters used by subtracting the two numbers. Take the larger one and subtract the smaller one. 3,141 minus 3,128. That leaves us 13, and these are talking in the same unit, CCF, cubic feet. So Tom's house used 13 CCF of water, 13 cubic feet of water during that billing period. Ain't a whole lot, which is great. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like it's not a lot, but remember, cubic feet, CCF is 100 cubic feet, so 1,300 gallons of water is kind of a lot, but we use a lot of water. You would be surprised at how much water you use when you just brush your teeth. All right, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Let's move on. Example 2. Janice works for a utility company and is reading the Joneses household electric meter. What is the reading? So this one is kind of like a twofold. First, I have to show you what a meter looks like. Like if you find a meter at your house, this is what it's going to look like. This thing right here, it's just got a bunch of numbers, and then this little thing toggles and kind of spins around and goes and marks the value, and there's different meters for different amounts. But so we got to figure out how to read this, which you don't really know yet. But we're dealing with Janice here. Before we get into it, we got to get in a little Janice character, you know what I'm saying? Oh my God. It ain't fun if you're not having fun, am I right? Okay, so how do we read these things? Janice is appalled looking at this electric meter. Oh my God, Chandler? I can't. So if you're lucky, maybe your meter is digital, but if you buy an older home, you could have a dial like the images above. And I'm going to teach you how to read the dials. It can be a little bit tricky, but it's not too bad. There's a couple rules of thumb. So check out where the arrows are pointing on each dial. So this guy is pointing over here, over here, over here. They're in between two numbers always, right? The correct reading is the lower of the two numbers closest to the arrow, with one exception. So it's always going to be the lower number, except if the arrow is between 0 and 9. The arrow is between 0 and 9. You're reading the number 9. So it's always going to be the lower number, except on the high end. The highest number is 9. If it's between 0 and 9, it is going to be 9. So let's read this meter, shall we? Let's kind of take it piece by piece. So this one is between 1 and 0. Therefore, the smallest number between 1 and 0 is 0. So I'm going to read that meter as 0. This meter right here is between 9 and 0. If it's between 9 and 0, that is the one we're going to take the higher number, actually. So this is going to be 9. This guy right here is between the numbers 5 and 6. So we're going to take the number 5. That's the lower one. This one's again between 5 and 6. So we're going to read that as 5. And this is between 1 and 2. So we're going to take that as 1. So our meter would read 0, 9, 5, 5, 1. Or taking this into account, the meter is 9,551 kilowatts per hour of electricity. So 9,551 kilowatts of electricity, kilowatt hours of electricity, based on the meter reading. Now you can read a meter, or it might. I should have put an image in there of where it's a circle, and then it has little slots, kind of like a speedometer, and then it will tell you what the kilowatts of electricity are that you're using. And it has like a reset button and things like that. Example 3. A certain electric mixer requires 125 watts. How much would it cost to run the mixer for 90 minutes at a cost of 10 cents per kilowatt hour? So maybe it's a mixer like this, fancy smancy KitchenAid. Or maybe it's Thanksgiving dinner and you don't have a fancy schmancy KitchenAid, but you have one of these bad boys. You're going to be mashing them potatoes for 90 minutes. How much is it going to cost you? So, so it runs off 125 watts. We're going to run it for 90 minutes. How much is it going to cost if it costs 10 cents an hour? So, got to convert from minutes to hours. Nothing but a conversion. So 90 minutes, if we're running it for 90 minutes, that's 90 minutes over 60 minutes, which is 1.5 hours. Got to find watt hours, right? So 125 is the watts times the 1.5 hours. So I have 187.5 watt hours. And now we have to find the cost at a kilowatt hour. Now that I have watt hours, I got to find the kilowatt hour. So 187.5 kilowatt hours is going to be 187.5 divided by 1,000 because kilowatt hours is out of 1,000. So I have 0.1875 kilowatt hours. Now that I have how many kilowatt hours I have, I just need to multiply that by my 10 cents. I have the cost per kilowatt hour, which is 10 cents. So my kilowatt hours, 0.1875 times 0.10, leaves us with 0.01875 as the cost, or it's going to cost 1.9 cents, right? 0.01875 if I rounded this up, 0.019, 1.9 cents, between 1 and 2 cents. They're really not going to cost a whole lot. So I could run that bad boy for quite a while. We could be doing this every Thanksgiving. Or maybe you're having a cookie baking-a-thon, right? Maybe you and your friends are trying to figure out who can make the best cookies. Y'all could be running this thing straight up for 90 minutes and it's only going to cost you 2 cents as long as it runs on 125 watts. And the cost was only 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So let's move on to something that you might more likely encounter versus figuring out how much an appliance costs, which you can see is really not that expensive, but it adds up over time since we're plugged into electricity a lot. Let's talk about something that you might be interested in doing to create a more balanced budget. So, obviously, you guys aren't born yesterday. You know that utilities can vary according to the seasons. Electric bills are usually higher in the summer because we're running the air conditioning and fans and things like that, right? And gas bills can be higher in the winter because we're running the heater and things like that. Or maybe we're baking and we're staying inside, right? Or you're running the gas on your fireplace. So because of this, some utility companies offer balanced billing. So they even out the cost of your utilities so that the cost is the same every single month. So they're literally just evening out. So whether you have a very high bill one month and a super low bill month another, they're completely evening it out. So you know exactly what you're going to be paying every single month. You have a predictable payment that you know it's going to cost you every single month for your utilities, no matter how much you're using it, each different separate one. So this might be something you're interested in or look into over time. So last year, the Ross family spent $3,336 in electricity. So the year prior, they paid over $3,000 for electricity, which not surprised, especially if it's a family. They are they're going to opt to use balance billing for next year. So how can we figure out how much their monthly payment is going to be using the prediction that they're probably going to spend about the same amount in electricity this year? So I threw in my little SoCal Gas logos and EMWD for gas and water. So let's figure out how much is it per month, right? Annual utility cost divided by how many months are in a year. So 3,336 is what they spent last year divided by 12. So they're spending $278 per month, right? So that's it. That's all that their billing might be per month. $278 under the balance billing program. Now that is ridiculous. Just thinking about my perspective, that is so much electricity being used. But maybe it's because I don't watch a lot of TV. I have no idea. That's so much. I think my electric bill, oh gosh, none of our bills are over 50 bucks. I mean, we live in a small house, but that's a lot of electricity. Although it does go up when we run the air conditioning, and who knows how many kids they have that could be watching TV or playing video games or plugging in their computers or plugging in their phones or whatever they're doing. That's a lot of money. Oh my gosh. The Ross family needs to reconsolidate some of their, they need to, not leave the light on. Jeez. All right, we're almost done here. Uh that's so crazy to me. Um sorry. I didn't actually think about that value before right now. Oof, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of dough. You will never catch me with a energy bill that high. Mm-mm. No way, no how. That is not a way to be energy efficient. They clearly don't have solar. That's something I can infer. They don't have solar. $278? Oh, okay. Moving on. I'm going to let it go. It's their bill, not mine. Their bill, not mine. Their money, not mine. Maybe they're billionaires. Maybe that's how much Kylie Jenner's electricity is for her mansion. Who knows? It ain't me. Okay. Example 5. Energy saving appliances often pay for themselves, which is why you want to get an energy saving appliance. And usually it's this got this logo, Energy Star. All the appliances when you go to like Lowe's, Home Depot, Sears. Oh, Sears is out of business. Whoever else sells appliances, um, they have this logo. So they pay for themselves over a period of time. So the savings in energy eventually equals the cost after a certain number of years. So the Thompsons' old water heater cost them $455 per year to run. This is a hidden cost that you don't think about. Water heater, right? That's part of gas, I believe. That runs on gas. They use gas to heat it up, or electric. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's gas though. Hot water heater costs them $455 a year. Ain't too bad. The new one that they purchased is 12,000 or $1,240. Right? New water heaters are very expensive, people. Very expensive. They don't go out often, but they do go out. They're expensive. And if they purchase an Energy Star one, it will save them 31% annually in energy costs to run it. So they're going to save 31% from $455. How long is it going to pay for itself? If it's costing this much money, how many years until it's paid itself off? It's totally worth it. And then I feel good about myself for buying this over $1,000 appliance. So let's figure out the annual savings by taking 31% of how much they're costing per year to run. 31% of 455. 455 times 0.31 is $141.05. Okay, so that's how much money I'm saving a year, $141, which is pretty nice, right? That's money back in my pocket per year. That's an extra 150 bucks. Maybe go out to a nice dinner. Maybe you go and get your hair done. I don't know. However you want to spend 150 bucks, $141. Um, Next, we're going to take the cost of the new appliance by the annual savings energy to determine the length of time it takes to pay itself. So it costs $1,240 divided by how much I'm saving, which means it's going to take 8.791 length of time, years, to pay for itself. So we can't have 8.79 of a year. So I'm just going to round that up and say the water heater will pay itself off in about 9 years. And again, like I said, you don't have to purchase new water heaters for a while, probably at least 15 years, but they do eventually go out. So after 9 years, it's paid for itself. Yay! This is the tricky part here, though. So you take the cost divided by the savings, and that gives you the proportion of the amount of time that it takes to pay it off. That's how long it takes these little savings to finally add up enough to be $1,240. And last one. So say Mike purchases an Apple desktop computer, like this guy over here, for $2,500. They're expensive, whatever. Mike always leaves it on like this and the tower. It doesn't have a tower, but whatever. Mike always leaves the computer on power up mode. So he never shuts it off. He never unplugs it. He never does anything with it. He just always leaves it on and then clicks his mouse and it's good to go, right? On average, his make and model costs $96 per year in electricity when it's on. What's the average yearly cost to own and operate this computer system at the end of 5 years? So I just want to know how much is the average yearly cost, and at the end of 5 years, how much has Mike spent? And this is our last example for the day, which might be good for you guys to figure out. So this actually uses some prior knowledge of rational functions. Rational functions are the fraction ones. Don't worry, they're nothing crazy. I'll walk you through how to set it up. But this is actually a really good real life example of when my Algebra 2 students are like, when are they ever going to use this rational function? Potentially cost and average. So we're going to create a cost function that of how much it costs to use this thing. Where X represents the number of years owned, operated. So how long are we owning and using this computer? So I know it's going to cost me $2,500 to buy it up front. That's just the cost of purchasing it, plus $96 per year. So 96x, that's my cost function in electricity. So now we're going to set up an average cost function, which is the quotient of the yearly cost, which is right here, and the number of years. So like I said, this is going to become a rational function, but don't worry, it's literally just going to be c of x on top and the number of years on the bottom. And remember, x is the number of years. So a of x is c of x over x. And we already said c of x is 2,500 plus 96 over x, so this is what we've got. So on average, this is what I can, use to figure out on average how much it costs me to use this system. And we're specifically asking how much does it cost on average after 5 years? So we're going to plug in x equals 5 to represent the cost at the end of 5 years. Plugging it in, I have 2,500 plus 96 over 96 times 5 divided by 5. So $596. Therefore, after 5 years, the average annual cost of owning the system, owning the computer, and operating the computer is $596. A cost he didn't think about, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a lot to run that computer, but he paid for it, and that's over 5 years, right? 596. If I divided that by 5, that's $119 and change a month. So just for electricity and then paying off that $2,500, that's an extra energy cost. So something to think about. And this just depending on, what your cost function is, might not always be that, but something to think about when we're going into utilities. So that is what I have for you guys today. You guys will see a nice little assignment in your document, your hyperdoc, and I look forward to seeing you guys for the next section, and hope you enjoyed learning about budgets. All right, peace.